January 27th of 2025, so yesterday when I'm recording this, President Donald Trump decided to make the claim that he sent the United States military directly into California and, under emergency powers, turned on the water flowing abundantly from the Pacific Northwest, from here at home. Here's what I want to note about that, because I feel like it's very important and very interesting that there is endless amounts of people who for some reason are eating that up and believing it immediately, and even arguing against those of us who have made the point of how fictional that is. Because there's no water grid in the United States. Zero. It's not like our power grid, but it seems like a lot of these Trump supporters and a lot of these other people who are believing this are believing it specifically because of the fact that they actually are assuming or believing that somehow our water system is also the same type of grid. Now, it's so basic and simple that you only have to use the most minimal amount of brain power and life experience, actually, to understand how and why this is simply false. He cannot simply send water from our systems up here in the Northwest or water sources from here in the Northwest down to Southern California, let alone to any other state. He simply cannot do that. And it's very obvious why. So let's start with the fact that every single water district system in the United States has their own water quality indexes. The reason why is because of the fact that they all have different policies. They have different chemicals they put into it a lot of times. Some ban fluoride, like Portland, which is great on them. I'm glad that they're doing that, and they upheld that recently in the last vote for it. You know, obviously they have chlorine. Water systems tend to overload, and sometimes en masse, all at once, chlorine into the water systems at specific scheduled times. And that sucks too. So on and so forth. Obviously, that's why Detroit has completely different water quality and even flavor to that of Flint, Michigan. They're relatively close together, geographically speaking, even by way of road, if not by way of the flight of the bird. They're very, very close together, but they do not share the same water system. They may even share the same sources, but they do not share the same pump stations or sanitization stations. So, treatment facilities. They do not share those. That's why Flint, Michigan is famously the worst and most dangerous water system in the entire nation. Whereas Detroit, not so much. You have all these different things, studies, where they even go around the nation every few years with the water from different cities. You can get water and taste water and drink water from the taps of New York City, from Philadelphia, from Boston, from Miami, from LA, from Vegas, from Albuquerque, from Denver, from Portland, from Seattle, and they all have different flavors and they all have different qualities. And they literally show the quality with them and what they've found in those water supplies on average consistently, whether they're contaminants or PFAs, which is technically obviously contaminants, so pollutants like that, like birth control, like a billion and one different things, antipsychotics, a billion and one different things that cannot be processed and cannot be filtered out of our water system that people naturally urinate out. The point is that that's one of the reasons why. Now, another one is because obviously if you think about, like, say construction is happening and they hit a water main or they hit one of the water pipes, they don't have to shut down the entire water system, the entire district, the entire network that it serves, because it's isolated to a pipe. If it's a main, it's more likely they may have to do the entire district, but usually it's just a portion of a district that will have their water shut down, or at the very least, they will have it to where if it gets contaminated somehow, whether there's a leak or whatever else, the reservoirs, an example, have a high amount of contaminants that happened in it because maybe they have a pink algae bloom in the summer or something. Then that area, if it's not the entire district, it'll be an entire portion of the district, say where a leak is in a pipe, that now has to boil their water, or that has that contaminant in it, has the coloration that happens in it from the leak, the punctures. So that's another reason why that that's the case. Because let's go into our third example. And again, because I'm from the Northwest and from Oregon specifically, let's talk about locally as an example. The city of Portland has an entirely different water grid and water system, pump stations, everything else, and even sources than we do here on the west side of the Portland area. We're in the same metro area, but we have completely different water systems and districts. The city of Hillsboro has their own water system, and of course, the city of Portland does. But we also have the Tualatin Valley Water District. And of course, there's very different policies and qualities to them. Hillsboro, I believe, has either chlorine or it's fluoride that they don't put in. I think it's chlorine that's non-chlorinated, I believe, supposedly. And then Beaverton, of course, is full on with both fluoride and chlorine. Tualatin Valley Water District is as well. Except Beaverton, in my experience, the 5 years living there, their water is especially bad because of the fact that it's always around 10 p.m. at night. This is redundant to say at night when you say p.m. You can literally taste the fucking chlorine that they just overload and dump into the system all at once. Like, it's clearly scheduled, and it's disgusting because you just get, like, it tastes like you're drinking straight pool water. It's absolutely repulsive. The point is, we all have different water systems, water districts, and water grids. Just because you're in a municipality or in a, so it's in other words, a city, or in a metropolitan area or in a county, it does not mean you share the same water systems. You can share the same pump stations, you can share the same sources. Like, I believe Tualatin Valley Water District, Hillsboro, and Beaverton all share the same water pump station, the main one being down that they've recently just built, and I think they're completing the Westside Pipe project as we speak, that connects to a new pump station they built down in Wilsonville. Obviously, Portland is now connected to that. They weren't originally ever connected to our systems, but now they're connected to that as well as like a backup for the Bull Run reservoirs on the Bull Run River. So as a backup, they can tap into our Westside pump system that they installed. And that replaced the old one that was further up the river towards, I think, Portland, which is especially gross because the Willamette is, and has been for a long time, the third most polluted water body in the entire country. So that's, you know, nice. But the point is that they all have different ones. So I could expand this example. So in regards to the Portland metro area, let's go down to, like, say, Salem, Keizer. They also have their own pump systems. They have their own stations. They have their own district. So they're not connected in any way up here to the north, which again should tell you exactly how and why. No, there is absolutely no truth to what Trump claims that he had sent the waters from our sources up here in the Northwest down to California, even to the extreme north edge of California where we border them. No, they cannot send it that far. Like, it takes, and it's not as an insult, it's a observable fact, as I stated on Twitter with this. It takes a very special kind of stupid person, or somebody who practically worships Trump, in order to believe that this is even possible. It's literally impossible. We do not have that. They'd have to completely rebuild the water systems. And this is not just true here in the Northwest, but it's true in a lot of places, but especially here in the Northwest. There's no doubt that most of us here that are born and raised here, whether we moved elsewhere or not, are very, very familiar, intimately so, with how incredibly dysfunctional, old, and malfunctioning our water grid and system, our pipes, really are. Because they are old. We are one of the only places in the entire nation that still has an 1800s water system. Water pipe lines and system. Even the big pipe project that happened in Portland, though they insist that they replaced all the oldest pipes, they did not. There's still, most of them still there. That's why during flood stages or really heavy rain periods, they always advise against going anywhere near the Willamette River because it floods with sewage. Because it still has all the old pipe systems. It still has the combination of drain water, rainwater, so runoff water or brown water, with black water, which is sewage. We have combined pipes here. So, especially Portland does. So, as a result, if there's a flood, you're getting sewage in all your water sources and potentially in the ground layers too. It's delicious. That's a problem. obviously. So you have to consider that if they're that old, that we still have these 1800s combined pipe systems that are an absolute horror show. It makes no sense that that's a thing, especially modern day. They need to get rid of them. Then it tells you another example of why this claim by Trump is utterly false. Like we would have to have such an advanced, modernized water grid to have all of our different water sources from across the nation intertwined and interconnected like that. It's just not how it works. And as a final example, you can get just barely on the outside edge of the Portland metropolitan area or any of the other city areas in this state. You can technically be considered officially within city boundaries even, but you're on the outer edge of it, and you will be on wells. You'll be on groundwater because you do not have a connection to their water system, to their grid of water. You don't have access to the pump station. You don't have access to the sanitization station. So you still are getting and relying on groundwater and aquifers and such things like that, springs, in order to actually fill your well and keep you watered. And that's true pretty much across the entire country. The sewage system is actually a great example of exactly the same thing. You can look at its exact shadow. It's parallel to the water system, and that is the sewage system, because it still requires a lot of water. And so water treatment stations oftentimes will have sewage treatment stations nearby or close by or in the same complex as each other, because they use pretty much the same exact machineries, the same basins, the same way and water sources to try to clean it out and filter it before they dump the cleaned water back into the water system, back into the source that they pump from. It's a great time. So once again, what Trump claims here is utter horseshit. The Department of Defense leadership literally immediately called him out and said, no, that's not true. That literally is untrue. Including sending the military to California to turn it on did not happen. Let alone the fact that no, there is no water that got sent from the Northwest to SoCal to fight their fires. Bullshit. I just wanted to put that out there because it's so obvious. It's the most obvious thing ever, dude, to anybody who's lived, especially more than, say, like 20 years, who pays attention to their surroundings, knows, should know, and does know, as a matter of fact, like what is real and what is not. You should automatically have seen that and been like, just either laughing or been like, what the fuck? It really does. Again, it's not an insult. It's a fact. It's an observable fact. It really does take a very special kind of stupid to believe a single word of what he said. Other than maybe the military, but even then, that's questionable at best. And pretty much was obvious that it was bullshit from the start. I digress. Don't take everything that the experts tell you or that the officials tell you genuinely. Don't take it seriously. Always make sure you take it with a grain of salt. Always have a certain level of distrust for every word that comes out of an expert's or an official's mouth, because they are actively lying to you at all times. And obviously some more than others. Trump is a very egotistical prick. He's a big showman. He loves to play into stupidity because he loves the negative PR. Because that's how his entire career has been built. So naturally, he's going to be more inclined to make these kind of grandiose claims because it's literally his entire career.